Hey guys, earlier today I had a guy write me on Instagram and he was a bit in despair about his hair transplant. And it inspired me to want to make this video because I get written by hundreds of guys who are really unhappy with their hair transplants. And I see really common threads of things that they do or the mindset that they have that I feel like is the reason for their hair transplants being failures, either in their mind or, actual failures. So, or some of both. And so I feel like maybe talking about these three things will help you not have a failed hair transplant. So these are my top three reasons why your hair transplant would be a failure. The first one that I want to talk about is probably not the case for you, fortunately, because you're watching this video and you're doing your research, so you're probably not this guy. So I'll just talk about it briefly. But that is the case where guys will just be frustrated and just sort of have a moment of frustration that leads them to make a rash decision. So I was almost in this position myself, so I can relate to this kind of person that you just have a moment where you're like, shoot, I'm just so frustrated with what's going on with my hair. I'm just going to go down and find the nearest cosmetic surgeon or nearest hair transplant surgeon and sign me up, doc. Put me in the chair. I'm going to have surgery. Give me a hair transplant, give me my hair back. And when you're in that rash kind of mindset, you often just make bad decisions. And so, obviously, the best way to have a successful hair transplant is to really research what kind of hair transplant might be right for you, what doctors are the best surgeons, who do you get along with, surgically, like who do you feel like you have a good rapport with, what kind of guarantees they provide. There's so many things that you should look into before you pick your surgeon. So yeah, you're probably not that person because you're watching this video, but that's the first cases that I see a lot of people regretting their hair transplants, or people that didn't do a lot of research and just kind of found the nearest surgeon. The number two case I see for many failed hair transplants is the misconception that you don't need to do anything to maintain your hair after you have a hair transplant. That's completely not true in 95% at least of all of the cases of people who have hair transplants. You need to do things to maintain your hair afterwards. This is the way that I like to think of it, and because it makes sense to me. And that is that the hair in the back of your head, it's DHT resistant. It's not DHT proof. So think of it like a water-resistant watch. It's a water-resistant watch, so you can probably go swimming with it, but you wouldn't really want to spend lots of time in the ocean with it. And, there's still a good chance that it could break and, not work. So guys all lose their hair differently and all have their hair miniaturized differently. But in many cases, guys will start to have hair that miniaturizes also around this safe zone. Okay, it's the safe zone where they take the hair from because it's more resistant to DHT. But there is still a chance that it can fall out. There's still a chance that that hair can miniaturize as well. It's less likely and it's more resistant, but trust me, that hair still, it's not like DHT proof. You need to do things to not only maintain that hair and keep that hair as healthy as possible, but also to keep the hair around it as healthy as possible, because you don't want your hair to keep receding downwards or backwards, or maybe there's some hair that's still left around the transplanted hair. You don't want that hair to fall out. A hair transplant is not I do this and that's it, and then I never need to think about my hair again. Now I've got hair. Unfortunately, you need to be using, taking finasteride or using some kind of topical finasteride compound like I use. I use a laser helmet. I take pumpkin seed oil, I take saw palmetto, I take a biotin supplement. I'm still doing all of these things to maintain my hair, and you need to be doing some or all of those things as well. If you don't, there's a good chance you'll keep losing hair, and then it'll just be a waste of money, and you'll look worse than you ever did, unfortunately. But there is hope. This is called hair loss hope. You can do these things, and they're not that difficult. And I haven't had any side effects from this stuff that I'm doing now. So I think that you'll be fine. And it's not really that hard. The third thing that can lead to a failed hair transplant is not having the right mindset going into it, and particularly the right expectations. The best that a hair transplant can do is to give you the look of, or the illusion of, having thick hair. So your hair is never going to be as thick, hair transplanted, as it was when you were 5 years old and you've never lost or had any miniaturized hair. It's never going to be that thick. It can look that thick. If it's done well and you're the right kind of candidate for a hair transplant, it can look that thick. But when you get up close and you're moving your hair through your hands, it's never going to be as thick as it originally was. Another thing is that you can make it look that thick, but you might need to do other things, like to use concealer, or to use, like, Derm Match is one of the things I use, or there's Topic and Kabuki and all these different concealers. So there's lots of things that you can do to enhance your hair. Even I had a guy write me on Instagram, and his hair actually looked pretty good. I mean, if he used any concealer in his hair at all, it would look awesome. But he was like, my hair transplant has failed, and I'm just going to live with this scar. I'm going to shave my head. And I was like, man, just sprinkle a little stuff on your head, and use some hairspray and hold it in. You'll look like you have $1 million head of hair. I mean, you look great. So not having kind of the right mindset, and knowing that, like, hey, it's never going to be perfect, but I can get to this certain place and I'll look great, and I can look as good as I ever have, or better. Um, that mindset is extremely important, and that's why having a good consultation with a good hair transplant consultant or a good surgeon that can kind of lead you into the right mindset is actually a very important part of having a hair transplant. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded for you guys, but I just wanted to give you some of these thoughts, because this could save you from having a failed hair transplant. Just having that right mindset, and knowing a couple of these things going into it.